Welcome to Everything Compliance, Shout Outs and Rants. Gentlemen, we are now on to fan favorites, shout outs, and rants. So, in keeping with our tradition of the same order, Karen will start with you, Matt over to you, then to Mr. Marks, and then Mr. Armstrong, and I will bat fifth this episode. So, Karen Woody, do you have a shout out or a rant for us?
Today I decided to go with a shout out because I imagine that a number of my colleagues here are going to have some rants or have some pretty heavy things to discuss given the state of the world and of affairs. So I tried to take a minute today to give a shout out to things that brought me some much needed respite from the news. And so my shout out today is to the national and state parks. I spent a lot of this past weekend out in Indiana, near Bloomington, Indiana. I spent a lot of time on Lake Monroe, which is a man-made lake just outside of Bloomington, Indiana. It's a beautiful, lovely place. And it's lovely because so much of the lake is surrounded by Hoosier National Forest, meaning that there aren't many houses within view from the lake. And so you're able to just spend some time on whatever kind of watercraft you may be on. For my kids, it was a tube pulled by a speedboat, but I did appreciate there was this nice haven where you can really just look and see trees, an occasional hawk, and water, and you can take a minute to separate yourself from the horrific news we were all inundated with, the state of affairs of a number of our governments, and a lot of other things that feels overwhelming. So places like that, I think, are a balm amidst all this chaos, and I was grateful to get some time to spend some time in a beautiful place. So my shout out is to national and state parks and the mental and physical health benefits they give to all of us when we seem to very much need them. So for that, I will then turn over to others who might have less optimistic things to say today.
Matt Kelly, do you have a shout out or rant for us today?
I have both, actually. I'm going to give a very quick shout out to the Boston Celtics, who won the first game of the NBA Finals last night. Somewhat to my surprise, I am a lifelong Boston Celtics fan because I grew up here. I was a fan even when they were terrible. I did think that they would prevail over the Miami Heat to get here, and then I thought they would start losing promptly to Golden State. They have not yet so far. And good Lord, they might actually beat the Golden State Warriors. But actually, I do want to rant, not about the shooting in Uvalde, because if I did, I would be here all day and probably work myself into a stroke, like most Americans, because I am so outraged about that. I am going to give a much more mild rant in keeping with our Glencore subject today. I want to actually rant about the Justice Department not being clear on these CCO certifications, and specifically Assistant Attorney General Kenneth Polite. He has a habit, very good, meaty, thoughtful, important for compliance officers, which then do not get published by the Justice Department website. And for those of you who are not total news nerds like me, the Justice Department news website does regularly publish the full text of speeches from senior DOJ officials, including in the past, the Assistant Attorney General of the Criminal Division, who these days is Mr. Polite. And so far, he has now given at least 2 speeches this year I can think of about CCO certification and about how compliance officers should think about compliance programs and how they should deal with the Justice Department. These are important things for this audience and for corporate compliance generally. And nary a peep from the Justice Department news website about what he actually said. And so we suddenly have to go and hunt this down from transcripts or video replays or something like that. Also in this vein, we have not, as I mentioned earlier, seen a formal policy statement from the Justice Department about CCO certification. So I am not going to demand that they start publishing Mr. Polite's speeches, the full text and whatnot, but I would request politely, diplomatically, pretty please with sugar on top, Mr. Polite and the Justice Department, please, you guys are talking about important things. You should not just keep that bottled up to whatever speech that he might be giving to the audience in the room. Publish the text of these speeches on the website of the Justice Department so the rest of us can see it promptly and really digest it and understand it. And the sooner you start doing that, DOJ, the better. So that's my rant. And now I'm done.
Jonathan Marks, what do you have for us today?
Well, my rant was going to be about the report that Glencore actually issued. I think it was in May. I can't remember the exact date. May 24th, the Ethics and Compliance Program report that they put out.
Yep.
You're going to put out a report like this, at least say something, please. Maybe have a scorecard on the 11 hallmarks of compliance and where you actually are. Don't list that you've done 50 audits. Tell me tell me whether, kind of what's going on here. I read through this thing like 18 different times, and every time I read it, I felt like I knew nothing more. I don't consider myself to be the brightest bulb in the batch, but I really didn't get too much out of this other than a bunch of numbers and some pretty pictures on a piece of paper. So, I mean, if you're going to issue a compliance report to the world, to me, there should be at least something in there about, how the whole thing's really coming together and what's really going on, not just the fact that throwing up numbers there and how many audits that you did. How many effective audits were there? How many, what does your remediation plan look like? You talk about this, but I think the word audit's actually mentioned 3 times in the whole thing. And one time it says we have the right skills. I don't even know what those skills are, and I don't think they do either. So that's kind of my rant. I mean, I think too often corporate America puts out garbage, and I think in this particular situation, I would classify this as pretty close to being garbage. So thanks for that. And then my second rant, actually, actually it's a shout out, which is really rare for me. Thank you, Philadelphia Phillies, for firing Joe Girardi. When you have a team that does not come together and does not gel with that type of talent, there's usually a reason why, and the root cause here, I think, was the manager, and I'm glad they got rid of him. So let's hope that we have a better second half of the season.
Jonathan Armstrong, on the Queen's Jubilee, what do you have for us?
Well, I shout out to the Queen, of course, and thank her for her service. And I think I mentioned that a couple of podcasts ago. But so instead, I'm going to shout out to tennis player Sir Andy Murray. And why am I mentioning Sir Andy Murray at this stage? Well, in 1996, Andy Murray was 9 years old. He hid under his desk in school whilst a gunman ran amok through his school. He and his brother obviously survived, but 16 of their fellow pupils were killed, and one of their teachers. And very bravely, he's spoken out about those horrific events recently, obviously prompted by events in the US. And maybe I'm reading Tom's mind, but I'm wondering if he's going to have something to say about that. Now, of course, our thoughts and prayers are with everybody affected by school shootings then and now. What the UK did 26 years ago is we had a judge-led inquiry. We don't have all the answers. We've still had 2 shootings since then, but we've had no mass shootings with handguns in the 26 years since. In the US, you've had 200 this year. And I haven't got the answers. Andy Murray hasn't got the answers. But it's time to find them. In the UK, we limited the use of handguns, or prohibited the use of handguns, and we limited the use of other guns, sporting rifles, for example, where you had to have somebody countersign your gun certificate. You could have your lawyer do it. In 26 years, I've countersigned 1 certificate, and I regretted it. And why I regretted it isn't the subject for a podcast. But as I've said, shout out to Andy Murray for being brave enough to speak about these issues. It was for him then a horrific time. Clearly, he's still dealing with the trauma. But let's find a way not to have anybody else to suffer. I don't know what that way is, but you need to get the brightest minds together and work out an end to all of this.
So for my shout out and rant, I want to honor those who died in Uvalde. Neva Bravo, age 10. Jacqueline Carrazes, age 9. McKenna Elrod, age 10. Jose Flores Jr., age 10. Aliana Garcia, age 10. Uzziah Garcia, age 10. Amarie Garza, age 10. Xavier Lopez, age 10. JC Lovanos, age 10. Tess Mata, age 10. Miranda Mathis, age 11. Althea Ramirez, age 10. Annabelle Rodriguez, age 10. Mate Rodriguez, age 10. Lexi Rubio, age 10. Layla Salazar, age 11. Jalaya Seguro, age 10. Eliana Torres, age 10. Rogelio Torres, age 10. Those were the children who died in Uvalde. There were 2 teachers also gunned down, and I want to honor them, Irma Garcia and Eva Mirlis. Well, that concludes this episode of Everything Compliance. I look forward to our next episode together. Thank you all.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox again. Thank you for listening to this episode of Everything Compliance, Shout Outs and Rants. Everything Compliance posts on Thursday of this week, so if you want the full episode where we take a deep dive into the Glencore FCPA enforcement action, check it out on Thursday, the full episode of Everything Compliance. Everything Compliance Shout Outs and Rants is a special production of the Compliance Podcast Network.